What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be talking about what makes a quarterback elite. We're going to be talking about three specific aspects of the quarterback position that you guys can apply to your own game to take you guys to that next level and to improve your overall throwing mechanics. So I hope this video gives you guys some value, fellas. Hope it gives you some ins and outs of just the specific things that quarterbacks need to do to take their game to that next level, okay? But also, fellas, if you guys want to send me your own film, you guys want to send me clips of you guys throwing, whether we're looking at your mechanics or actual game film, check out that very first link in the description, fellas, where you can get access to a film breakdown service. You can submit any kind of film to me. I'll break it down. I'll give you guys feedback, and then I give you guys specific drills to improve your overall throwing mechanics, whether it comes to your lower body, upper body, and all the above. So check out that very first link in the description, fellas, if you guys want to submit your own film for an own specific breakdown tailored to you. Hope you guys can check that out. Very first link in the description. Let's get started with this video. So first thing I want to talk about here is weight transfer, okay? So all the great quarterbacks have this, and this is just something that a lot of younger guys struggle with. This is a clipper from Trevor Lawrence working out. It's just this position right here. This is the position that a lot of QBs struggle to get to, and this is what limits arm strength. This is what makes their spiral not as good, and it ties into really everything with the throw. So you see how when Lawrence goes to throw, everybody I'm sure has been taught at some point or another, you want to be 60-40, right? So you want to have 60% on your back leg, 40% on your front leg, right? I say you should go even more than that. I say it's like 70-30, right? Because that weight transfer that you get, that shift of that weight from that back leg to that front leg is obviously what ties into ground force, but also what it helps with is rotational force, because that allows your front hip to open up. When you guys have weight on this back leg, that's a power position, right? You're preloaded. You don't have to load this ball up to your ear. You don't have to sink down to that leg. The mistake a lot of quarterbacks make is, especially when they get to the top of the drop, they'll have like 70% of their weight on their front leg. So what ends up happening is when they go to throw, this transfer doesn't start the throw. They already have all their weight on the throw, and that's what makes this back leg trail way behind. I'm sure you guys have seen that before, where quarterbacks get way out ahead of themselves and their front hip ends up locking out, right? So what Lawrence does such a great job of here is having this back leg loaded. You almost want to think of your back knee to try to get it like just slightly over your toe, because that really makes you loaded, and that can allow you to actually transfer and go straight through, because that weight transfer, like I said, is what ties into velocity. You watch any great quarterback, any elite quarterback, when they're standing in that pocket, they are loaded on that back leg. They're not 50-50, fellas. When you guys are 50-50 in the pocket, you're not going to be able to transfer, and your front hip's going to lock out. This is the problem that a lot of quarterbacks have. They'll have too much weight on their front leg, and so when they go to throw, this front hip will lock out, and then they'll lean out of the throw, because you're a rotational athlete. You have to rotate through at some point. So when your front hip locks out, you have to swing your elbow down, you have to lean out of there with your head, and what that does is that'll affect your release point. But if you guys can transfer through and actually shift that weight to your front leg, that can get you more velocity on the throw. Now, the other mistake that guys will make is they'll be loaded on this back leg, but they'll push. They'll push off the inside arch. And you've heard me talk about that before. I say drive off the inside arch, but you don't want to like push to the target. You want to push towards the target. You almost want to think of it like you're in a big hula hoop and you're trying not to let your stride get over the hula hoop, because if you guys push super long, sometimes that can create a long stride, and that can do the exact same thing. Your back leg will trail way behind. You'll end up leaning out of the throw. Your release will get pushed high and low. So you want to make sure that you're almost like in a big hula hoop. You're getting that front foot down. It's just a weight transfer. You're still pushing, right? You're pushing off the inside arch, but it's a weight transfer, so you can go actually this way and you can rotate externally. That's the main key. So the number one thing that's going to help you guys become a better quarterback, help you be an elite quarterback that all these great guys have, is that weight transfer and having like 75% of your weight loaded on that back leg, so that hip drive can bring the ball through. Because as a quarterback, trust me, you shouldn't be thinking about your arm. Obviously, there are times where you want to work on your mechanics. There are different things that you can do. But when you transfer your weight, you get your hips through the throw. That arm is just essentially along for the ride, and I can get a lot of power on this ball. Let's watch this thing full speed one more time from Lawrence. I know I didn't really play that clip too much, but again, the main thing I want you guys to understand is weight transfer. So now we're going to be looking at this story from Josh Allen. Again, this is just an absolute rope over the middle, and I want you guys to understand how tight of a window this is right here, right? You got a free safety coming over the top, and you got another safety over here, like almost like a bender against like a too high look, and Allen has to get this thing out in that window right away. So the reason why I include this clip in here, right, is because when Allen goes to make this throw, again, let's talk about what it is. You see how he's got like 70, 75% of his weight on that back leg, so he can transfer to that front leg and actually get that front hip to rotate through, right? That back leg trails a little bit behind, but ultimately he's shifting his weight. That weight transfer is what gives you power. But that's not what we're focused on. You guys got to understand at every level of football, right? Whether you're youth going up to high school, whether you're a freshman going up to varsity, whether you're a high school player going up to college, whether you're a college player going to that next level, every single aspect of the game gets faster, right? Especially that high school to college jump, because you're probably a great player on your high school team. When you go to college, everybody's a great player on their high school team. So the game gets faster, right? And so those throwing windows get smaller and smaller and smaller. So what you have to be able to do is eliminate any kind of wasted motion back here in the pocket. And that brings me to my second tip, right? The second tip is eliminate any kind of wasted motion. And what that comes from is being loaded on your back leg. We already talked about that, but this ball carriage. So many quarterbacks struggle with this, especially the young ones. They have to prep for each throw. They hold the ball low and then they raise it up to that shelf, quote unquote, that everybody loves to talk about it. They raise it up to their ear, they have it in their chest and they load it back and they cock their front shoulder. We don't need to do that. You need to just have this ball ready to go at all times. Like I'm ready to go with this ball. And you see how Allen just takes it back. He just separates his hands. There's no movement with that ball when that throw's ready to go. He gets that back foot in the ground. He hits the top of the drop. He hitches. It's just out. The second he hits that back foot, he's already preloaded on the back leg. He's already preloaded with his ball carriage. That's how quick we got to get it out. Because the second you have that wasted motion where you lift the ball up, you lift it up to your ear, that's when the throwing window gets closed. That's when that safety's coming down. And that split second is the difference from a pick going the other way and you actually being able to fit it in that window. Trust me when I say this, fellas, this is something that you see a lot of guys do. The days 7-on-7 screws with kids, man, because there's no pressure, there's no pocket. They got time to get the ball out, right? Like they got 4 seconds or 3 seconds, whatever it is. But still, guys are just taking hitch after hitch after hitch, coming up to the line of scrimmage, not taking any drops. And then when they get into a game, they're not that quarterback anymore. They're just not the guy, right? So when you're in an actual game scenario, you can't have any wasted motion. Trust me, because one, you'll probably get your head taken off. Number two, because you got a pass rush and there's actually a threat there. But also, when that game gets faster and you're loading up and you're taking all these hitches, that throwing window just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And if you throw this thing late, your guy's going to get killed. While as in 7-on-7, and nothing's really going to happen, right? So we got to make sure that we eliminate all wasted motion from our throw to make sure we make that next jump in our game and take our game to that next level. Let's watch this thing full speed one more time. Great job just getting this thing out of his hands and fitting it into that tight window. All right, so now we're going to be taking a look at this throw from Trey Lance. Now, main thing I want to focus on is just the follow through. So many quarterbacks struggle with this, and here's the reality of the situation. I'm going to play this full speed. The reality of this situation here is that you got to look like a quarterback, right? If you're being recruited, you got to look the part, and I wish it wasn't like that, right? I wish it was just, okay, who's going to throw the best ball out here? Who's going to be the most consistent? But there's something that these college coaches are looking for, right? It's not even necessarily the eye test, like you got to be 6'3" plus and weigh a certain amount. It's you got to throw the ball a certain way. You got to be, and you hear like guys like the Elite 11 talk about it, like, oh, they want to be twitchy, right? And I really have a lot of respect for what those guys do with the Elite 11. Most of the coaches, I really like what they do. And they talk about guys being twitchy or like whippy, right? So like the thing about that is that has a lot to do with your follow through and you being able to stay square at your release point, because you see every single quarterback now does that. What those guys preach and what I preach as well, which is why I agree with a lot of what they say, is that they're looking for the guys who, like, not everybody throws the ball the same, but they're looking for those key things that all the elite guys do. And the main one is the follow through. So you see when Lance goes through here, he has that follow through that everybody's talking about. And that follow through is when you have your weight, again, his weight's loaded. He doesn't really lift the ball up a little bit. He just has the ball kind of right here, right in this ball carriage, a little bit of a lift. But trust me, it used to be worse when he was at North Dakota State. He used to really load up, and he's fixed that, right? Because somebody probably obviously told him not to load up with that ball. But when he gets this ball out of his hand, you see he's transferring his weight. He's getting those hips to go through, getting the weight to the front leg. Now, at the release point, I want you to see where he stays. He stays completely square to this throw. His shoulders and his hips are parallel to the target. He's not replacing. He's not getting his right shoulder. See where his left shoulder started? He's not getting his right shoulder all the way over there. He's staying square. Obviously, there's a little movement with his right shoulder because you have to follow through, but he stays square, and that hand, that front hand, stays nice and tight to his collarbone. That's the position that we want to be, because when you guys can combine, they call it hip and shoulder dissociation, right? So when you get your front foot down, your front shoulder should be somewhat closed, right? Because that weight transfer is what brings the arm through, and that hip drive is what brings the arm through. But when you guys can just like pull that front hand back to your chest, you have that weight transfer, and that front hand stays back to your chest. There's whip there. You know what I mean? There's torque there, which is what they talk about when they're saying saying he's twitchy, because when you guys don't move this front arm, when you have a quiet front arm and a quiet front shoulder, and you let your weight transfer make the throw, and that's what brings the ball through, and you stay square, there's a lot of torque to it. It's like a bow and arrow, right? You're taking the bow back, you're taking the arrow back with that string. That's like you loading the ball, and the bow part is your front shoulder. You keep that steady, and you just let your hips and your weight transfer bring that ball through to be able to create that whip and to be able to create that torque on the ball. That's what we got to focus on. That's how you look the part. That's the third tip that I can give you guys to make sure that you're an elite quarterback and take that next step in your game, because that front ham staying tight to your frame and you being able to stay square makes so much velocity on the throw, and it keeps you a much more consistent release point. When guys swing this shoulder and they end up replacing, like their right shoulder's here and they end up with their left shoulder at the same spot, you're going to be pulling your front shoulder this way, so your release is going to get pushed because your body's split down a midline. And if you were to pull that front elbow down to your waist, your release would get pushed high. You got to keep that front hand by your collarbone or thereabouts, like you're eating a sandwich almost with your front hand, and letting that weight transfer bring the ball through, and you stay square on the finish. By square, I mean you keep your shoulders and your hips parallel to the target. Let your weight transfer rotate that ball through rather than swinging your shoulders out of there and replacing. So that's the third thing. Make sure we stay square on the follow through and make sure we have that nice twitchy motion at the finish. Let's watch the thing full speed one more time. Great example of how that's supposed to look there from Trey Lance. All right, guys, we want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys got a ton of value from this. I hope this video helped you out. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to leave those in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And also, fellas, if you guys want me to take a look at your throwing mechanics, you guys want to send me your game film, whether it's practice film, whether it's just film of you throwing, check out that very first link in the description. I can break it down for you, give you a specific breakdown tailored to you and specific drills you can do to improve your game. Check out that very first link in the description. I'll see you guys next time.